Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
So I hear you finally got a new place.
Yeah, I sure did.
Is it in the suburbs of Denver, perchance?
Oh, well, yes, it is, as a matter of fact.
Have you been issued your copy of Frampton Comes Alive yet?
2 of them.
And welcome once again to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast where each week we two guys get together and we talk about, well, records. My name is Jim and I own a record store.
And I'm Steve and I'm a record collector that will eventually have a record room again.
You're close. You're very close, I hear. I see from
Yes.
your video this morning that you've got a place and you're about ready for the physical move.
Yeah, in another week, we'll do our physical move. I'll be back. We'll probably do live in the studio next week.
That's what we were talking about, yes.
Yes, and then we'll be packing up and coming out here. They're sending the stuff by Conestoga wagon, just like the settlers did. So it'll be about 10 days before I get the stuff, and then, of course, get the record room set up. But I was walking through it yesterday, and it'll be a nice size record room, I think.
Good, good. I think maybe down the line, maybe we could talk about what it takes to create and establish the proper record room. Maybe that's a good episode.
And someone could tell me what I did wrong. Because, we're speakers this way. They've never been done right, but we'll find out.
We'll see what we can do on that. So this week, subject at hand, I think we would like to talk about live music because there is, well, not so much live music, let's say live albums.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of news stories out there that we're going to touch on first before we get to our own lists of our favorite live albums that have a lot to do with live performances.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if, either of them are great news. For some people, like for Gene Simmons, it's great news, isn't it?
Yes.
So
once again, he does it again. And
he does it again.
Man.
So we will explain all of that coming up here in just a couple of minutes. But because this is a vinyl community podcast, and those of us in the vinyl community like to show off the goodies that we've brought in, well, for us, it's every week. I think maybe we're the exception to this. But everything, the collection should always be growing. If it snail's pace for some, maybe for us, maybe a little bit faster than normal people. But what kind of goodies? Now, I know you're still in flux, but you are getting some things coming in.
I am. I've been finding it, Graham. All right. They're going to be, this first one I think you're going to find interesting. This is a group called Majesty Crush. And it is a shoegaze band from the 90s from Detroit. So I did not know Detroit had a shoegaze band. There's a hype sticker in there. It comes with this is from Numero Group. It comes with a nice booklet in here. And I'm trying to see, is it 2 records or I think it's a 2 record set. They never really did a lot, but guess they were known in Detroit. And I know nothing about this group. I was watching a video about shoegaze, and this was mentioned as a group that was very good, just never went anywhere. And so I thought, Detroit connection. So gave that a shot. So it's called a Majesty Crush, Butterflies Don't Go Away. This was just reissued. This just came out. So for those of you that like that genre, you want some Michigan shoegaze, that's it right there.
Didn't realize that existed either.
Yeah. Then, Jim, have you ever had, you hear about a group and you go on, you look at their discography and you said, okay, which one do I want? And you're trying
Where do you start?
Yeah, where do you start? And you just can't, so you just say, I'll just buy them all.
No.
Happens all the damn time. Well,
this
was a group, and this was recommended to me by one of the people that watch my channel, Manami Deutsch, and it's off the Guru Brain label, which is like one of my favorite labels because it's more Japanese psych rock, new Japanese psych rock. And so someone had recommended, so I went and looked, I played some stuff. It's a little more laid back psych rock, definitely very spacey. I think of my friend Michael Christensen. He might really like this. So here's one of them. This is Fortune Goodies. Then there was Miami Deutsch with Dim Light, and there we go. And then there was, thank God they only had 3 albums. If they had 10, this really would have been tough. And here's their self-titled one, Miami Deutsch. So Minami Deutsch.
Oh, there we go. Not Miami Vice or Minami.
It's not Miami Vice.
Miami Vice.
It's not Miami Germans.
There we go.
So it's kind of funny, Deutsch, for the second thing. But I listened to him on listened to him on YouTube. I really did like what I heard. This Guru Brain, whatever that label is. I mean, I really like this label a lot, and I've been buying a lot of this Japanese music from it. So I got 3. I'm very interested to someday get a stereo system again to play them and see what I think and show them on my channel properly.
Couple of weeks, right? A couple of weeks. It was a slow week. We are now what, T-minus just less than 2 weeks to Record Store Day. So things are starting to heat up here at the store, and it's taking a little bit more of my time getting all the prep work done for that. But just a couple of quick little ads, nothing too tremendous. Picked up a copy of Jackson Browne's The Pretender. And this, I mean, it's a good, solid album. Could be considered one of those guilty pleasures, if you will. And I do have a decent Jackson Browne collection. It's not a go-to very often, and I do enjoy listening to them. But, we've got 10 of these in the store. So I thought this is a nice one. I'll just put this aside. And if perchance all the other 9 go, then I'll keep, I'll maybe put that one out and keep it.
Well, after showing it on this video, you're going to have a run at the store. Well, I need to get that. I need to get that.
All of the Jackson Browne stuff. Okay, then this one is kind of a surprise. Popped in yesterday with a little bit of a collection. It is Corky Lang, and the name of the album is Making It on the Street. And let me call up my notes here because I needed to have a reminder of when this was from. And this was originally released in 1977. Discogs calls it soft rock. Now, Corky Lang is a Canadian drummer, and you might know him from his collaborations with Leslie West and Bruce and Lang. So the West Bruce Lang group, as well as Mountain, Corky Lang was a part of all of those. And it's not anything like the West Bruce Lang stuff, which would have been, fairly hefty, good Brit sounding blues, and Mountain, which was going to be a little bit harsher and harder guitar work. This is actually, it's not really soft rock. It's a little bit fusiony with the jazz, but it's got some guitar flavoring to it. But what attracted me was the fact that not just the sticker on the front, but it actually is a promo label on the inside. So I'll give this a good listen or two. I've just a cursory listen on there, but I kind of dig it if you're in that softer rock mood. But Corky Lang's Making It on the Street.
Very nice.
And then finally, a new one to me. It was new last year. Came out from, speaking of Detroit, the Electric Six, and this is their 2023 album Turquoise, which oddly enough does not come on Turquoise.
False advertising.
That could have been a no-brainer on this one, but the Electric Six, if you're not familiar with these guys, let me call up, because Discogs, I think, is very funny on this. It's a 6-piece Detroit-based band known previously as the Wild Bunch. I know you're familiar with that, where it was a Record Store Day release. They play what has been described as an energetic and unique brand of rock music infused with elements of garage, disco, punk, new wave, and metal.
Yeah,
so I guess that sums it up, and especially with the disco. But Electric Six has always been kind of a fun group. I've got a couple of other albums. Some of their mid stuff is not available on vinyl. I wish it was. I'd like to get I think Fire is on vinyl, but that's probably the one you want to get.
Actually, it's only the original is on vinyl, and a medium price. Because I checked on this last night because you showed this.
Oh,
and the medium price is $163. The cheapest you can get it right now is $180.
Wow. Okay, so that is on vinyl. That's probably why I haven't come across it yet. But we'll put that one on the Grail list for each of us. How's that?
I wish they'd reissue it. I really do.
That'd be ripe for a third man reissue. Talk to your folks down there.
Okay.
This though, but Turquoise is a solid album, and it's all, for 2023 from the Electric Six. They don't seem to shy away from a lot of their more just straightforwardness in their lyrics. How does that sound? I mean, there's a song on here called Staten Island Ass Squad. 5 Clowns, the album or the song Turquoise, Hot Numbers on the Telephone. But it's a fun rock album.
And for folks, if you don't know Electric Six, go onto YouTube, pull up their video of going to a gay bar.
Okay, we won't link to that one, but yes.
Well, it has Abraham Lincoln in there. It's about Abraham Lincoln.
I don't think it's historically accurate, though.
No, but it's funnier than I'll get out.
For those of you who do not wish to venture to YouTube and pollute your search algorithm with the Electric Six and Abraham Lincoln, we will create a Spotify playlist of all the music that we talk about, and it's usually linked in the description, and we'll put that up on our Facebook page too. So when we talk about these albums and you're like, what the heck are these guys talking? What do they mean disco garage rock from Detroit? You can see, and we'll put that up there, and I'll probably put the gay bar link so you can listen to that one. You're on your own to find that, though. So speaking of outrageous, holy cow, the news broke on Thursday that the legendary rock group Kiss has joined a large, let's just say a selection of aging rockers as they reach not only the end of their careers, but they're reaching their lifespans. You've got to think at some point, are selling off their catalogs. Now, this has been going on forever. I mean, when Michael Jackson passed, there was some wrangling. When Prince passed, what happens to his catalog? And these are huge, huge money makers, especially for a group like Kiss that has been around for 5 decades now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And getting close to 5 decades.
Yeah, the early 70s, really.
Yes, indeed. So for them to say, I think finally that we are hanging this up, there will be no more new Kiss, because in this, they sold off their catalog to a Swedish company. Let me call this up here, Steve. This is interesting. To a Swedish company called Pop House. This is the same company that owns the ABBA catalog. And it's such strange bedfellows in this case, when you think of ABBA and Kiss being kind of under the same corporate umbrella. But not only did Kiss sell their catalog, they sold their likeness, their entire essence, if you will, is now owned by Pop House, meaning that down the line, this company will begin creating new-ish type of Kiss content. Not necessarily new music, but they're going to create live shows. They're going to, I imagine, create some sort of an immersive, I don't want to call it a hologram, but kind of an immersive experience like they're doing with ABBA Voyage.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think the possibilities on this are equal parts scary and limitless, because now essentially Kiss is going to live forever.
Yeah.
Think of it like that.
Well, as we talked a few months ago about this, when the ABBA thing came, we said, you know what, every dead artist is going to be out there. Jim Morrison will prove he's not really dead. Elvis is alive. And now Kiss will live on in infamy, going from city to city, still playing long after they're gone.
And Kiss was totally on board with this. And one of the things I'd read, I wasn't sure if it was in this story or not, but one of the things that they did was go to George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic and put on those motion capture suits and in costume or not, and they digitized their likenesses. So members of Kiss, Gene Simmons, his tongue has now been digitized and captured for use by Pop House as they see fit down the line, because they essentially, they own Kiss.
I wonder if, like Ace Frehley or the cat Chris, I can't think of the cat guys, the original ones, if they get anything off of this, if they're going to use their likeness,
It's a great question. I didn't see how deeply that goes onto there, but, this is the future. When you combine this with AI, as we talked about on previous episodes, it's really kind of limitless. And
Yes.
short of what's called the singularity, where our minds can be essentially uploaded to a computer, this is like one step below this, where, as we said, the band Kiss will now essentially live forever. It will be immortal finally. So,
You know, maybe, you know, we sent up that Voyager, you know, a few, you know, decades back. We can do it again, but now we can have a Kiss hologram thing pop out for that.
there you go. They won't invade us at all after seeing that. This species is too dangerous.
Unless they want to join the Kiss army.
Well, if that's the case, they better put those little inserts in Voyager too, so they can mail that back with the postage due.
You get invaded by a bunch of aliens, have their face painted. Rock on, baby. All right.
We're here for Gene. We love you. Click, click, click. So the other, and I don't want to call this news. This has been rambling around on the internets now for a couple of years, but it has gained or regained steam in the past couple of weeks. I started seeing some channels fly by on my YouTube feed, essentially calling out the Eagles for not playing live. Essentially Don Henley. Now, this is something that's not new. I mean, the accusations of artists not playing or doing their stuff live has been around for a long time. And we kind of compared this to Milli Vanilli, but it's a bit of a different animal in the fact that Milli Vanilli got caught not singing on their studio stuff and then just lip syncing the live, where now these reaffirmed accusations are such that the Eagles on their tour, Don Henley, Joe Walsh is in there too, and are not singing live completely. How's that? They're singing, but they're being aided by some AI regenerated recordings of things like the high notes.
Yes.
In some cases.
Yeah, those high notes just don't work. Once you get past your 60s, they're not coming like they used to.
Especially with Joe Walsh. I mean, Joe is such a great dude and a singer. One of the things that I'd read on this, it said Joe Walsh is kind of against it, but with the group has to go along. And one of the videos I saw that kind of showed this damning evidence shows that when Joe Walsh goes in for one of those high notes, he's singing and you hear him verbalizing and saying, you know, yeah, or something in between notes. And when he goes to hit a high note, he leans way back, and yet the vocal still goes and it doesn't diminish as he creates distance from the microphone. Then there's other videos that try to show some damning evidence on this, that on stage, you know, Don Henley, when they're showing the video screens, he's always kind of obscured by a microphone, so you don't see his mouth at the angle. The cameras are never on him for more than 2 seconds. And then to top that off, and I didn't realize this, but I guess that would be the case, I guess the Eagles are fairly militant about not allowing members of the audience to use their phones to record the band. Oh. And they kick people out of venues. So there's some channels that are really kind of calling this out and saying, this is not right. If you're using recorded audio to balance out or fill out your vocals and the harmonies, for example, are you really playing live?
Yeah. And considering how much, you know, an Eagles ticket is going to cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Oh yeah, that is absolutely the case. Let me call up one other thing here, because there is the thing that really sold me on this was the channel that I'd seen first, and I have to find it again here. So the name of this channel is Wings of Pegasus. And again, this guy's fairly technical. That's again where I feel kind of home. I'll put on that college professor hat once again to talk about this. But what this guy has done is essentially compare waveforms of Eagles performances. And these were from a couple of different years. I think he's got a performance from 2023 and one from 2024. Yeah. And what a waveform is, essentially, it's a graphic or just a visual representation of a sound wave. And that's been around forever as well. You used to see them on things like oscilloscopes. But with the advent of digital technology, we could actually see this visual representation of sound. And it allows you as an editor, and I used to do this when I would edit audio and video, it allows you to dig in and do some fairly precise editing and recreation. The waveform also will allow AI to help recreate and fill in these holes digitally. So what this Wings of Pegasus channel has done was taken these performances from the Eagles, you know, less than a year apart, and compared the waveform of some isolated Don Henley vocals. And what he found is what he calls irrefutable evidence, proof that the audio is a backtracking that is the same from show to show by comparing the waveform. I mean, it's tremendously technical, but to me, this makes sense. Whereas maybe you can hear it differently in a crowd, but he is arguing that these are essentially the same audio tracks.
Yeah, it was pretty technical. It gets in really deep on this.
He does, and as you see here, he's kind of comparing different portions of that audio, and he calls them in and he compares those two performances and shows that the waveform from those two are they're almost too identical to really argue with. So yeah. The argument then on our part becomes, is this a breach of contract? Can the Eagles be sued for presenting something as a live performance that is technically not 100% true?
Is it live or is it Memorex?
That's the question.
Yes.
In this case, it's not even on tape, but as digital. I don't know. To me, we've talked about this on several other episodes. The influx of AI with not only recording, but the ability to immerse and use that in video or in audio during live performances. The idea of rockers aging to the point where maybe they should just sit back and rest on their laurels, or in the case of Kiss, sell their catalog when they know they can't do it anymore, versus we're going to get one more tour out of ourselves.
Yeah.
But we cannot go out there and sound like crap because that's all they'll talk about is, man, Don Henley can't sing anymore. Well, what's the alternative?
Yep. We're going to our 6th final tour. So, I mean, the Eagles are known for that. Ozzy Osbourne, maybe this will give Ozzy a chance. We'll do it one more time. But you wonder, I bet there's a ton of that happening out. I would not be surprised, especially when it comes to the backing vocals.
Yep. The idea also too, and there's got to be ego in there. We don't say a lot of controversial things on this podcast, do we, Steve? We usually sly away from that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to kind of compare this to, I don't want to take too much heat for this, Madonna's plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Okay. You look at what she did in an attempt to try to maintain some semblance of youthfulness. Is that any different than Don Henley refusing, and if allegedly refusing to let it be known that his voice isn't what it used to be?
Yeah. Yeah. And there are those artists out there that, hey, this is the voice, and you go there, you understand it. It's the way it is. And I know there's a lot of Eagles fans who would just go, I'm there for the experience. I kind of want to hear it the way it used to be. When I think of going to see an aging rocker to one of those concerts, I get a little queasy. It's just like, well, that's not how I remember it. Not quite how it goes. And so maybe something like that, I go, oh, wow, they still sound great. Now, I'm being totally buffaloed by the whole thing, but I'm going to leave going, yeah, you couldn't believe these Eagles. They sound fantastic, just like they used to. And you tell other people, and they go, and well.
It's truly a catch-22, because you're right. You don't want to disappoint the fans and say, man, he sounds terrible. Why did I pay $400 for this? Versus I paid $400 to see guys up there miming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know where to go. I don't know as if I would pay that much money anyway to see an act nowadays, because I know, how much of that trickery is involved and how slick these and choreographed these performances have to be. But again, you don't want to give up on the acts that you love. It's a tough one.
I just look at that. That's a lot of record albums I could have bought.
There you go. And speaking of record albums, how about we talk about live albums then, as they were meant to be? This is one other thing. I forgot to tell you about this. As we transition the subject matter to live albums, I found another channel that has claimed that the record labels are going back, and on some of the official channels, they're using auto AI and auto tune to correct old imperfections in classically live performances. Wow. So going back to a live performance from Freddie Mercury, for example, they're tweaking his voice and now calling that the original. This is the official audio of that performance. And I think that's wrong. Because when it comes to live albums, I'm not a tremendous fan of live albums, but I do have some for the groups that I care about. And I think you're the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either. I don't, how often do I pull out a live album to play? Almost never. There's only a few that I really have. But, you look at Record Store Day. How many live albums are on Record Store Day?
There's a lot.
It's live albums is a way to make money quick and fast. I mean, it's extremely profitable, which is why groups did a lot of live albums. Sure, it's to give you the concert experience, but it's just, let's just think of, the real thing is it doesn't cost a lot. We're out there, we performed it, so we recorded it. So there you go.
I think that over the years, especially in the last 15 or 20, the idea of a live album being released by a favorite group has lost a lot of its, just a lot of its flair, for me at least. The Rush albums, I think we talked about last week, they would do 4 studio, 1 live, and that live album would encompass everything to date, concentrating on their current time frame. And they did that, I think, at least, for 12 studio albums, 3 live ones, 3 big live ones. But then later in their career, they just started releasing a live album for this tour and that tour. And for me, that lost a lot of its significance because, well, I still bought them, of course. well, it's like, okay, you would look forward to a live album as a celebration of that portion of a band's catalog. Mm-hmm. But now it was just like, okay, we did a tour. Let's release the live album of that tour, like you said, to capitalize on that. And it's not special anymore.
No, it's not. And maybe, the people that went on that, went and saw them on that tour, to them, okay, wow, yeah, I saw this. Like, for instance, I went to a couple years ago, Steely Dan came through town. It's just Fagan left or whatever. Yeah. And I bought a live album there. Now, the live album actually was from the year before, but I bought it because I was there and that. And how many times have I listened to it? Once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, there are some live albums I think that truly stand the test of time. And even though I don't have a large number in my collection, I do have some, I think, important ones in my collection. You can go through and look at the list. There was a Rolling Stone list of the most important live albums of the last 50 years. And it's like, oh, it's all well and good, but I want to get ones that are important to me because the bands are important to me, and maybe the concert or the tour was important to me. But there are some for us, I think, that stand the test of time. And I think, what say you? Do you want to go through some of our important live albums? And you're struggling a little bit because you don't have the collection. So I'm going to call up imagery for you until you get back up to speed. If you want to start,
I gave Jim a few, but you know what? I'm just going to pop crap on him anyway. So
well, let me start off with one that I think that it's on both of our lists, and I think that we can both agree with, and it's a tremendously new one, and that was Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon live at Wembley at the Empire Pool. This album came out last year, and I think that this is a great example of a throwback to the way live albums should have been done in this case. Now, granted, the performance was a 50-year-old performance, but the album, if we're talking about collected, they did it just right. They used the cover to kind of pay homage to or pay tribute to the original Dark Side. And this is the Dark Side performance. It's a single album. They didn't try to expand it with extra junk in there whatsoever. They put a couple of posters and inserts on there. And I think the most important thing about this is that it just sounds absolutely fantastic. It's not a recreation of the studio album Dark Side of the Moon, but it's a very faithful performance that is just chilling.
Pink Floyd, well, there's a ton of concerts coming out, Boots or whatever the case. And I don't know. When I get my collection, I can count how many live Dark Side of the Moons I have. It's more than I needed, or metal and that. But the sound quality on these new ones is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I have Boots from the 80s, and obviously it's not to what it was, because now we can do a whole lot more with this music. But it truly is incredible what's been coming out. And, we've been buying a few of them, Jim.
We have. And the idea, too, and I just brought this one out, but there's so many other Floyd-centric live albums that are important, too. You look at David Gilmour's Live from Pompeii, or the Pulse set as well. They, I think, knew how to do that right and capture a live performance the way that it should be captured. that makes it meaningful to the fans.
And sound was such a big part of Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just, their albums, the way they were produced, the way they were made. I mean, they definitely they were very focused on how this should sound, because there's such quiet parts in there, and it's very, just, it seems like very technical.
It is, and to just have that right mix of crowd noise, because you talked about boots, and maybe we'll do a full episode on bootlegs and their evolution. But you want a little bit of crowd noise to let you know that, yes, this is live, but at the same time, you don't want that overpowering the music, especially a band like Floyd, where, as you mentioned, those intricacies of the ebbs and tides are so important.
Yeah. You get that very first Rolling Stones live album that wasn't live from the 60s, where they just pumped in the crowd noise. It's the most
got live if you want it.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing we probably should note. I don't believe on Yours or My, we're not going to find any Beatles or Rolling Stones on our live stuff, are we?
No, absolutely.
They're out there for those of you who want to. Let us know why we're wrong if we are on either of those two.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have to kick off some of your stuff?
I think the first, it actually, you could call it a soundtrack, but it is live. The album is live, and it's the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense. It was recorded as a film, but it is in front of a live audience. And first off, I have watched that concert film more than any other concert film in the world. I am a Talking Heads fan, so that's part of it. But the interaction, the sounds that they had coming out from this, which was just incredible. It sounds so good. And they've been reissuing it. Double album's been reissued to get all of the music on there. I just think for a live recording, they really captured it. And again, it was made with this in mind. This is going to be a movie, so it wasn't just like, we'll set up our mics and see what happens. But fantastic.
That is a great one to kick off with on there too. That notion of a concert film as well as one that I want to go to next. And this, for me, it's always tough because you can watch, you can listen to the live album, and that's great. But so much of what makes it an overall great package was the fact that it was built around a film. You get to see the actual visual performance. But then we call up something like the band in The Last Waltz.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, another example of that, where to see it visually is equally as important as maybe owning a great sounding version of that on the album. The star-studded nature of this, I think, is just, it's one that stands the test of time. And I like listening to it, but it becomes kind of more of a background thing. But when you sit and you watch it, you enjoy that other aspect of it.
Yeah, to your point, the amount of stars that are on there performing, it gives you a chance to see all of them
in one spot. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very nice. Okay, I think the next one, which I really like, is Live Evil from Miles Davis. And here's what jazz to me is more about live than I think rock. I think jazz has better live albums than rock. And the reason why, unless it's the Grateful Dead, is jazz is about improvisation. So when you're listening to this, it's going to be different, because these different people, they're going to get on, they're going to start doing their own thing, and it changes, because someone's just going to throw out some riff and someone else is going to follow it. I think that's the beauty of jazz. Jazz really lends itself to live music much better.
I'll agree. I agree to that. Yeah. It allows, especially a tight group of performers who know each other and they know their patterns, and they can play off of different moods on a different evening and take things in a different direction. And make it still fresh and new, but still grounded in the music that they're creating.
Too often in a rock, a live performance, we want to hear that hit. We want to hear the hit like we heard it on the radio, like we heard it on the album, and we don't want them getting kind of screwy with it and go, well, they put a reggae beat on that. What the hell did they do that for? Which I know why, because they're kind of bored with having to play it every night. But with jazz, things change constantly. And so, Live Evil is just a classic case. There was one I just showed on my video today, Grant Green, live at Mozambique, that was recorded in Detroit. And and they just go on. I mean, it's just like 20 minutes with 2 songs, and they just, the soloing is so incredible. They just take it to a whole new level. If those were just regular songs, it wouldn't be nearly as exciting as what the live is. And as I've mentioned, I don't listen to a lot of live. I will listen to jazz live because it's different and it's exciting.
Very, very cool. So I'm gonna surprise you. We talked about the technical. No, I'm not gonna surprise you at all when I bring up my next one. And we talk about Rush, and this was their exit stage left tour. Now, this was their second live album done after 8. And I think what's cool about this is that the cover and the artwork really kind of help pay tribute to all of the Rush albums leading up to that. And this is, of the Rush series of live albums, is my favorite because it's my favorite era of the band. And they cover, of course, everything from Spirit of Radio to Red Barchetta. So you're into Moving Pictures, as Tom Sawyer's on here as well. But then they go backwards a little bit. So you get something like Xanadu or The Trees. So this, I think, is this is them at their peak. They're technical. And I think, as I mentioned last time when we talked about the Rush, they created their music so that it could be recreated live by just the 3 of them. Mm-hmm. And this, I guess, them at their peak as well. So
yeah.
So that's on my list, and that is a go-to. I actually will throw that one on out of all the Rush live albums more often than I do others.
Sure. Well, speaking of at peak, though, many people will argue, no, they weren't at peak, but Kiss Alive. I saw them live, back in 76. I think this might have been 75, but it was very powerful. Kiss is, to me, a band that is more about alive, whether it's holograms or whatever. Their live performance to me is better than what is on the actual studio albums because they add to it. It's like in Alice Cooper. You go in and you're going to get a show. Kiss,
a spectacle, and yes. I think that was mentioned in the ABBA thing that they're doing too. Is that they want to keep that Kiss spectacle alive, and that in that case that makes sense. I think to carry that on this level of performance.
Yeah, it is, because when you hit 75, 80, it's hard to climb up on top of the castle stairs or being flying around. So, oh hell, just let's just use a hologram. It'll be a lot easier.
There you go.
But I only owned a couple Kiss albums. Kiss Destroyer, because that's the concert I saw. Kiss Alive, and but that was, to me, one. It's memories, and that's why it's there.
Cool. Now, one of my other ones, I'm just going to put this out here because I'll go to it. It's Black Sabbath and Live Evil. And this is kind of one of those best of both worlds. It's different from your other Live Evil. This is Live Evil here. So this has got the Ronnie James Dio on vocals, that era of Sabbath. But they also dip back into the Ozzy era. And I think I'd read somewhere that Dio was not particularly fond of having to sing Ozzy's songs, but knowing that was important for the band to cover live, as well as his newer stuff that Dio was a part of. But this is one of those ones, I think, that it's just a good live album, a solid one to go to from time to time.
So I'm going to talk about another genre that I think is perfect for live music. Obviously jazz is, in my opinion, but the other genre is a comedy album. A comedy to live tends to really bring you into the jokes more because the audience is laughing. So that must be the funny part. So you don't have to try to figure it out. And so one of the best, again, and I would put this as one of my favorite live albums, is Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guy. I mean, it is, to me, it's hilarious. I saw him in concert when he did that, but the audience and how they explode and get excited with him, I think is great. You think of George Carlin, a live album, it's really good. It's just the audience is participating with them. And what happens is the artist feeds off of it. And that's what you feel. You feel energy because the artist, just especially with a comedy, man, if the audience is going nuts, they start going even crazier and having fun. And I think, again, if that's a genre, a live album really is best.
Well, there's a reason that a lot of sitcoms use laugh tracks as well, because
Yes.
that helps gives you the clues. But it's a shared experience in this case. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to see a skit and then just go,
Yeah.
you're getting
Oh,
into
oh,
it.
that was funny. Oh, okay.
Get it?
Otherwise, you're going to laugh because you don't want to feel stupid. Oh, that must have been funny. I'm going to laugh because everyone else was. So.
Well, I got a pair here. Let's go with this. And I did finally, and it was later in my life, get to see Bob Seager live just back in 19 at the tail end of his touring career. And we'll give these as a twofer with 9 Tonight and Live Bullet. 9 Tonight, I don't think gets the love that the Live Bullet live album gets from Seager, because there's some great stuff on here, but this is the one that everybody knows, and it's a part of everybody's collection pretty much. It's one of the staples that you go to. And I think that one of the other aspects of live albums, you know that they're a success when a song from a live album actually takes on a bigger life than the studio version. It's more well known than the studio version. And in this case, we're going to do Turn the Page. Has actually gotten more, I think, radio airplay and is more recognizable, the live version, than the studio version from back in 72. It was for me, at least, too. When I finally got a copy of back in 72 and I listened to that studio version of Turn the Page, it's like, wow, that's different without hearing the audience react in the background, just to hear that studio side. But this, I think, is one of those exceptions where a live album can carry, especially a song, forward. But Seager was known for his performances, and this is, I think, very representative of how powerful of a performer he was.
You could put that,
he is, but no longer.
You could add Bruce Springsteen to that list.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I mean, he had that 5-album set, and people go to a Springsteen concert because he makes that into something special. We don't have fire. He's not spitting blood, but the power he puts into that music, I mean, it's what creates a Springsteen fan. I don't think it's necessarily his regular albums. It's his live performances, and people want to capture that.
On that note of a live version of a song being more recognizable than the studio version, we joked about this when we started off, was whether or not you'd be issued a Frampton Comes Alive when you move to the suburbs, a la Wayne's World. This is, I think, another one of those. And I was going to hold one up, but I actually don't have a copy of it here in the store that's showing how popular that is. That tends to go whenever we get a chance. But Do You Feel Like We Do is one of those songs, much like Turn the Page, where you're used to the live version.
Yep. In the mid-70s, you had to have that, or I mean, you were expelled from school even. I mean, they checked back. Well, no, we didn't have backpacks even. But you had to have it. You had to know it, and and a lot of people say that was the best live album of all time. Well, if you go in, it actually is not. Eric Clapton's Unplugged is considered the highest, biggest selling. There it is, live album of all time. Though it was made, again, kind of like Talking Heads, it was made for a movie. This was made for that experience, but it was a live album.
Which this particular copy is an interesting, because it's the MoFi version. Yeah. So you're not often going to find, I mean, yes, there are some out there, but you're not often going to find mobile fidelity versions of a live performance, because the quality of the audio would be a little too tricky in some instances.
But that was a case where it was an intimate setting, kind of like Nirvana. I mean, the Unplugged sessions were about intimacy. And so the audience behaved pretty good. Well, I'm sure there was things that shh, but it does add something to it.
A couple more. Oh,
yeah. Well, I was just, when you think about certain bands with live over studio, Grateful Dead, Fish. They have such a fun. Look how many bootlegs come out of the Grateful Dead. I mean, Dick's Picks. I mean, it's constant. People want these, but like jazz, they except jazz calls, soloing, and whether they're jamming, and they go into those jams, and it just takes their songs into a whole different direction at times. And though I'm not a Dead fan, I do have a box set that I paid a lot of money for. We're still trying to figure out why. I was just trying to understand them, and I don't mind them, but talk about a fan base, huh? And Fish now has taken over with that.
And bands like Goose and some of these other newer jam bands that have the ability to King Gizzard, let's toss them into that mix too. The ability to kind of move their performances as the mood or the night or the audience seems fit.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. And it becomes original, and you know, and it's not about, well, I just want to hear the song the way it is. No, the people are expecting. They're expecting something different to happen.
Let me toss out a couple more of my favorites from the collection here. I'd be remiss to kind of to put them in. We may take heat, but you get a Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. This is another one of those concert film albums, live albums as well. But this is another one I think that stands the test of time. Very representative of the band at its peak as well. But this one here is actually a personal favorite. I don't see a lot of people. I mean, Yes has got a lot of live stuff out there, but you get a release like Yes Songs that is a 3 LP set that is almost a classical music album in spots until it kicks into something like Roundabout or Long Distance Runabout, or you know, they're more popular stuff. But the packaging on this album has always impressed me as well. It's got a book, but it's not even a trifold. It's a double gatefold with all that great Yes artwork in there. So this is one that I'll go to, and it sounds very, very nice as well, but it's also very technical. Sure. And it's not that improvisation that we just mentioned, but it's very straightforward.
Yeah. That Led Zeppelin, that's the one Led Zeppelin I don't have because I can't get past those dream sequences in that movie. It's just like, I'm like, wow, just give
there's the one line in the middle of Stairway to Heaven, and I read somewhere that Robert Plant kind of regrets. He doesn't remember saying it during the performance. Does anyone remember laughter?
Yeah.
He kicks it right out in the middle of it. And it's very iconic when you think of this performance, but he was like, I don't remember saying it, and kind of wish I didn't. It's a little hokey. Speaking of hokey, I'm going to throw this one. This is like a hidden gem for me. I have had this album for a long time. I'm talking all the way back into the late 80s on this one. And it's the Tubes and What Do You Want From Live? It's a double LP recorded in London. And it's the Tubes at their, I think, raunchiest. It's before their top 40 radio hits. So you're going to get some stuff on there. I Was a Punk Before You Were, an 8.5-minute version of White Punks on Dope. And I think if I remember reading about this once, they invited somebody up on stage and they got into a fight with a guy in the middle of the show on stage. Okay. And there's a cover of the Beatles, I Saw Her Standing There, that is more of a punk song than it is a faithful cover of this. So the Tubes, I'll get in the mood for these guys once in a while because they are so irreverent. And at the time they were just wild. Okay. Absolutely wild.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think of just a few, just real quick, but I think are iconic as you think of James Brown live at the Apollo.
Yep.
Again, it shows the power of James Brown. Johnny Cash live at Folsom Prison.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about probably one of his most outstanding albums. It's a live album. But you really got the feel for Johnny Cash within that and what he was doing. Leonard Skinner, One More for the Road. I mean, if we didn't have that, you wouldn't go to a rock concert and yell Freebird. I mean, that was just the greatest, most important thing in rock and roll history. Freebird! What should we play? Freebird! So, you had to have that. Cheap Trick live at Budokan.
Yep.
I mean, how many millions did that one sell? And, you know, I want you, you want me. You had to have it. B.B. King live at the Regal. You know, blues does some really good. There's some really good live blues albums out there too. Still not to me like a jazz though. But
let me put these. This one hurts a little bit, doesn't it, for you? You had the.
I did get it again. I did get it back at least.
That's true. You did. These are the third man release from the Ann Arbor Blues Festival, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is an interesting one because we've been talking about how important it is to have some good sound on live albums. This is not the case with these. I mean, Jack White and his crew at Third Man did a good job recreating or fixing the sound, but most of this were done from tape recorders in the audience in some cases, soundboard recordings. But in this instance, this is important because it captures a performance where some of the giants of blues music came together for a weekend performance at a festival in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah, it is historic event.
It is.
And, you know, I guess you could say, you know, think of Otis Redding, you know, he have his, you know, well, the Fillmore West. I mean, how many live albums came out of the Fillmore West? Or, you know, the Allman Brothers. Were they at the West or the East? I don't know. They're at one of those Fillmores, you know. But you know, Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin was at those. And so you had these different live albums that come out that many people really, really love because of obviously the place was set up to handle a live recording to make it sound right. And it was just iconic.
Well, the historical nature of some of these. And that's why I think, you know, when you hear that they're going back and auto-tuning some of these things, I think we're losing some important parts of history when that happens. And that's why, you know, that's why getting albums that, you know, we mentioned Woodstock too, getting these things as they were presented, as they were originally intended and created is important. And especially in this era of digital trickery, if you will, having these on vinyl is something that cannot be changed. And you will have those essentially forever taken care of course. And you'll have that historic performance, whether it be a great quality audio, whether it be the top of their peak performance or not. It's still important to have and preserve those.
Maybe they go back and fix that one Rolling Stones album, though, that first one where they pumped in the live. You know what? There you go. Take the trickery because that thing really sucks.
There's no shortage of live Stones stuff otherwise to kick in.
Yeah, exactly. But boy, that first, oof, it's not live, really.
Please take us to task. What other live albums, what other iconic live albums did we miss? Tell us what some of your favorites are. But I think more importantly, how often do you go back to them? Is it and why? Do you go to relive a concert? Do you get a live album? Because I never did get to see Floyd live. I had a chance and I passed it up and I've regretted it.
Yep.
So is this a chance for you to live vicariously through a piece of vinyl and saying, I wish I could have been? Or in the case of Woodstock, you know, Steve, I may have been 4 years old, but I think I was there.
Everyone was. It's like I saw the Sex Pistols when they first performed. Yeah, right.
No. So please let us know. Contact us. Feel free to comment or head over to our Facebook page looking for two guys talking about records and talk to us about records and some of your favorite stuff. So other than that, I think that we are going to wrap our week up. Steve will be live in the store next week, we believe.
Yeah, exactly. And as soon as we're done here, I'm heading out to the Rocky Mountain Record Show. So see what
that should be fun. Keep yourself in control because you don't have a place to put them all yet, right?
That's right. Exactly.
So until next week, you folks have been watching / listening to two guys talking about records, a vinyl community podcast. My name is Jim, and I own a record store. And by the way, next week and the week after are going to be kind of a wild one here. So if I look a little frazzled, blame Record Store Day.
There we go.
And you're
Steve. And I'm Steve, a record collector that has no record room or turntable.
Almost. You're almost there.
Almost getting there.